If you're an anime fan, you'll most likely have a hard time socializing with other people, because stereotypes. So here's a guide on how to somewhat successfully socialize with other people as an anime fan. So let's go. To make it easier to understand, let's put it up in kind of a story format. Here we have our generic main protagonist with way too spiky and somehow gravity-defying hair. Same old, same old. Now, if our protagonist was in a harem, he would automatically be the center of all attention, mostly for girls. And the same applies to a reverse harem, of course. But for the sake of actually having something to talk about, let's just say he's not. So say our protagonist wants to interact with a new person. The first step is the approach. While often overlooked, it's still an important part, and no matter how tempting it is, the one thing you should never do is initiate the classic Naruto run towards the person, as your intimidating pressure might scare them away completely. Instead, calmly walk towards that person and stop in front of them. You may look weird on your first attempt at trying this, but no matter what, don't try to repeat it, as this will result in an endless cycle of walking away from them and then up to them again. Good, now our protagonist has cleared the first stage. Now it's time for the conversation starter, or icebreaker. Now this can be anything really. Normally, unless you're in Japan, don't start off by saying konnichiwa or any other Japanese phrase. Instead, you might just want to say hello. Now this might seem easy, but for an anime fan, just saying that simple word may result in what I would call the Yugi syndrome.
It's time to do.
It's basically just stuttering. Good, now that we've successfully said hello, now comes the hardest part, keeping a conversation going without constantly speaking about anime. Now this might seem impossible, but don't worry, that's exactly what this guide is for. There are a lot of different themes you can go about using, but let's be honest, none of us know what we're doing when we start a conversation, so just do like the rest of us, try to wing it and hope for the best. Now this is the hardest part, so don't get discouraged by a little bit of awkward silence, just keep trying. Now for the sake of storytelling, let's just say that our protagonist successfully kept the conversation going. Now comes the next part, finishing the conversation. Like with the start, it might seem easy, but it's easier to mess up than you might realize. The normal way to do it is to say something like, "See you later," and then walk away, but this comes down to personal preference. If you're nervous, you might end up not saying anything at all and just walking away. So let's sum up. If you've successfully followed this guide, you should by now have walked up to a complete stranger, said hello and had an awkward conversation filled with awkward silence that didn't really go anywhere. Followed by that, you might have become nervous and just walked away again. So now you've somewhat successfully interacted with another human being. Of course, from their point of view, a complete stranger just came up to them, said a few things and left. I did say somewhat successfully.